Are you an expecting mom who's preparing to have your first baby soon? If so, this video is for you. And here I'm going to go through all the things that are important to include on your birth plan. So I'm Dr. Shaunna Mason. I'm a board certified OBGYN practicing here in Houston, Texas, and having a birth plan and how to build it comes up in the office all the time. And as your doctor, I think it's really important that you sit down and spend some time building out a birth plan so that you can have an understanding of the birth that you're hoping for, right? So I have built a Birth with Confidence birth plan that I think covers some of the biggest things that all moms need to include on their birth plan. And I have linked that here so that you can grab it so that you can start working on building your birth plan. So why do you even need a birth plan, right? Our goal is to keep you healthy and keep your baby healthy as your care team. So how do you stay involved in that process as the mom who's going through this experience? So when you download a birth plan and start working through it, it gives you an understanding of the things that can happen during labor. Think of your birth plan as your roadmap to your dream destination if you're taking a road trip, right? And all along the way, you're going to have stops that are must-see places for you. Maybe restaurants you want to stop at, or this great hotel you found, or sites that just can't be missed, right? So your birth plan is your map to that destination. So from labor to your destination of vaginal delivery and healthy baby, that is what your birth plan will help you uncover. And along the way, you may have stops or goals that are really important to you. But maybe those are different than your mom's experience or your sister's experience or even a girlfriend's experience. So it helps you kind of start working through things that are important to you, things you may be seeing online or things you may have heard about, but you're not really sure how you feel about them. So when you build a birth plan, it's like mapping out your road trip, right? It gives you an understanding of how things might go from start to finish. It allows you to start building an experience so that you can start mentally preparing for it. And most importantly, it gives you an opportunity to start asking questions to your doctor or your midwife about how things might go, right? It's really hard to prepare for a birth when you've never had a baby. So a birth plan starts working on building up that experience. It lets your brain start filling in the gaps, and it gives your brain an opportunity to tease out some of those questions or fears that might be giving you some apprehension or worry. So that's the most important thing about building a birth plan. Not actually the destination, but figuring out all those stops along the way so that you can really birth with confidence, because not everybody's labor plays out exactly smoothly, right? Think about that situation as you've got this goal of a destination that you're taking this road trip to, but maybe the road is closed. Maybe there is, a turned over 18-wheeler who's leaked fuel all over the place and the road is totally closed, and now you're having to go on a detour, and you didn't plan for that and you weren't prepared for that. But maybe if we had prepared, we would realize that this detour over here actually gives us some great experiences too, and this allows you to have an amazing road trip, have an amazing birth experience, even when you are forced unexpectedly on some of those detours, where we can still get back on track to having our goal of a healthy vaginal delivery. So these are the things why you need a birth plan, right? Build an experience for your brain, fill in the gaps for the unknown, offer you an opportunity to start talking to your doctor about if this, then what kind of questions. And while every woman's birth experience is going to be totally different and unpredictable until we're in it, your doctor can take you through some situations about, if this isn't working, then we can try this. And that gives you some opportunities to map out different detour routes that you still feel in control and confident in navigating because you asked in advance. And most importantly, it is there to address your biggest fears, right? If your biggest fear is having a C-section, then you should articulate that. In fact, I built a whole section that's just for your fears about having a baby. We know that having a baby is so exciting, but we also know that it's a lot of unknowns. And when our brain has to deal with unknowns, it will fill in the gaps for the worst case scenarios so that we can prepare for them. And then we start searching, and those worst case scenarios seem to be popping up all over the place. So they start to feel really common. And and when in fact, maybe they aren't all that common, right? So it gives you an opportunity to identify what those unknown or underlying fears are so that then you can talk to your doctor about it. And she does this all the time, right? So she can help walk you through those worst case scenarios, tell you how common they are, tell you what her plan is when those things happen. So that then again, even if you find yourself unexpectedly on that detour that was your worst case detour, you're still going to know what's going on, what her plan is, and how to stay in control and confident in your birth experience, even if it may feel a little bit like the wheels are coming off. Just remember, we're still getting to that destination of a healthy baby, right? So that is why every mom should build a birth plan before you have your baby. And this really applies to first-time moms, but I would go on to say it applies to any mom who's expecting a baby, because things can happen differently with each and every one of your deliveries. And so just kind of working through that. This is what I loved about my first delivery. This is what went well. These were my fears then. These are my fears now. How common are they? What can I expect? What are our backup plans if we find ourselves on an unexpected detour? So let's go over some of the things that all moms should include on their birth plan. So these are things that are going to apply to you and your experience during labor, and a little bit less on how they apply to baby or after birth. So you should put on there your goals for moving during labor. So some moms know they want an epidural. They're going to plan to get that when their pain starts, and they're going to be very happy to continue managing their pain until their baby is out. But that's not the case for everybody. If that's your experience, put that on there. My goal is an epidural. I want it when the pain starts, and I want it to work through having my baby. If you're somebody who really feels like movement is what keeps you strong and it's good for your mental energy, and you really are motivated to maybe not use pain management interventions other than breathing and movement during your labor, then put that on there. Ask your doctor what's available to help you stay active and moving during your labor. Are you allowed to take showers? Do they have birthing balls, or do you need to bring those things with you? Do they have wireless monitoring so that you can still, watch how your baby is tolerating labor without having to choose between movement and monitoring, right? Ask, are you allowed to walk on the unit? Are you allowed to walk whenever your water's broken? What are their strategies for that? When might your movement be a little bit restricted? What, accessory items can they bring into your labor room to help you with that? So I think that's really important to include. I think it also is important to know that once you do have an epidural, you really cannot support your weight in your legs. So at that point, you are usually limited to being in the bed. Now, there's tons of strategies that your nursing team can use to keep you moving in bed, to keep your pelvis changing, to keep the baby rotating down. It's just you won't be able to walk around and bear your weight anymore. So I think that's a good thing to ask about, right? So that you know what changes about my movement goals if I choose to get an epidural. I think it's also important to know what your hospital policy, your doctor's policy might be on hydrating and eating in labor. Some hospitals are rolling back some of these restrictions, and you can eat and snack and drink until, I'll be honest, you're like running that marathon. You don't always feel so hungry anymore. But can you bring in your own food and snacks? Will you be connected to IV fluids? What are the benefits of being, hydrated through your IV versus being allowed to just drink on your own? Are all liquids available to you, or only some liquids available to you? So these are the things that will come up when you put hydration as one of the blocks on your birth plan, so that you can really anticipate what labor is going to be like when it comes to eating and drinking. The next big thing kind of touched on already is pain control. So what are your personal anticipated goals for pain control when you're in labor? And especially if you're a first-time mom, what do those goals look like even if you've never felt a contraction before, right? And so I think it's good to kind of have a little mini roadmap on this section, right? So that you can prepare your body as best you can, but then once contractions start, what do pivots look like for you if your breathing and movement and meditation techniques maybe aren't working as well as you had hoped? Or for first-time moms, labor can be so long. So maybe those things were working for you so well for a long point in your labor, but things aren't progressing as quickly as we had hoped? And what are your options as you start pivoting through them? Some hospitals, offer IV pain medicine. What is that going to feel like? What are the side effects for you and baby? What are the pros and cons from your doctor's opinion? And then you can go and research, right? How quickly can you get an epidural if you decide you want one? Are the anesthesiologists available 24 hours a day? Does your doctor have restrictions on how far along in your labor you have to be before they recommend or encourage or allow epidurals, right? So it's more than just, I don't want an epidural or I do want an epidural. Although it's very great to put that on there and then include the strategies that you're hoping to use if you are I do not want pain medicine options, so that you can build that confidence with your doctor. This is how I've prepared. This is what I'm planning to do. But also, if those techniques stop working for me or I decide to change my mind along the way, then what do the other options at my hospital look like for me? What are the risks and benefits, the pros and cons, the side effects, so that before you're in the throes of painful labor and you're on that detour you weren't expecting to be on, you've already given it some thought. So you know very confidently what your next choice is, and you don't feel guilty or surprised or unexpected because you actually mapped out that detour just fine. And these are the exact stops you want to take along the way, even though you weren't planning on being on that detour. Monitoring. So I touched a little bit on this when we were talking about movement, but a lot of babies can find themselves a little stressed out once strong contractions begin. So we like monitoring babies in labor. We want to make sure that we are keeping both of our patients safe, you and your baby in there, until we get to that finish line of a healthy vaginal delivery. So monitoring your baby, both internally and externally, are options that help us understand how your baby might be tolerating labor. And so you should ask, do you have the opportunity to do intermittent monitoring if your baby is tolerating stress very well? What are the pros and cons of that? What are the risks that you might be assuming if you choose not to monitor your baby? If you want to walk on the unit to help you with coping through labor pains, are you allowed to detach yourself from the monitor? How often should we check in on the baby? Does your hospital offer wireless monitoring so that you don't have to choose between staying active and moving and keeping an eye on how your baby's stressing, heart rate might be stressed with labor? So these are all things that you want to be prepared for so that when things maybe aren't going the way we wanted, you've already decided what your pivots look like, and you can make those decisions confidently in the moment with your nurse and your doctor as things are changing in real time. And then lastly is a whole section you should include on your birth plan about your fears. What are your fears? Are your fears about your baby getting stuck in the birth canal? Are your fears about tearing? Are your fears about having a C-section? Are your fears about your baby going to the NICU? What are the things that make you worried or anxious or afraid about going into the hospital? Are you worried that you're not going to have good opportunities for consent? Are you worried that people may not, honor your goals or be able to, confidently tell you what's going on, how things are changing and what the recommendations are? Are you worried that your spouse may not be able to stay with you, and what does that look like, and what is policy around that? Again, even thinking the couple steps down into your worst case scenario, right? That way your doctor can kind of walk you through some of that. Now, we can't predict every detour you might find yourself on your road trip to a vaginal delivery or a healthy baby and a healthy mom. There are things that happen acutely and change and pivot in real time. Your blood pressure becoming an issue, your baby's very stressed, you start hemorrhaging, you spike a fever. These are all complications that happen during labor, and we are your team that are there to help guide you, to help us pivot, to help navigate a safe detour. But we know those things are really scary. So I think building a birth plan offers you open lines of communication between your doctor in the office during your prenatal care and your nurse once you are in labor in real time. These are my goals. How does this that you're telling me has changed affect those goals? What are my options? These were options I feel confident navigating. Are they still on the table? If not, what else? What are we looking at? What are the risks and benefits? Can I have more time to think about it? These are all things that you want to be prepared for as a new mom so that you can birth with confidence. It comes from such a good place that you want to map out your delivery, right? You also have two people to keep safe, yourself and your baby that you love and want to get here safely. But I think thinking about your care team as your experts, that you have articulated through a birth plan what your goals, wishes, dreams are, so that we can help you navigate unexpected bumps along the way and keep you on track to that healthy baby and healthy delivery. I have built a birth plan template. I know there are lots of them out there, so this is just a jumping off point. But I also built a companion guide that goes into even more details about some of the unexpected twists and turns that can happen in labor. I would love for you to grab that at the free link below and leave me comments about what came up for your birth, or things you wish that your team had talked to you about, or things that you've been anxious to talk to your doctor about. I would love for you to drop those in the comments below so that we can build more education together and keep all moms birthing confidently.